Elise, I'm so excited to chat to you today. I know you're like brand new to the Jewelry Business Academy. You've only been in for a couple of weeks and we're only just getting started with you and your business. But I'm really just so glad that you've kind of just embraced feeling the fear and just coming on live with me. And I know it's uncomfortable, especially when you're brand new. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to chatting to you, chatting about some of the lessons you've learned and just building your business and getting it to where it is today. But before we even dive into any of that, do you just want to introduce yourself to everyone, share who you are, where you're from, a little bit more about your jewelry business, and then we'll go from there.
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Elise Estelle. I am a jewelry designer, creator, and artist. I'm originally from the US and from France. Currently living in Lisbon, Portugal, and I'm very excited to be here. And thank you for having me, Robin.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here as well. And I'm super jealous because you live in Lisbon, where, I mean, I lived 40 minutes from Lisbon for a couple of years, and it's just so beautiful there. So, you know, do you want to share a little bit more about your jewelry style before we even dive into any of this? Like, how did you get into jewelry? What inspired you to even get started in making jewelry? Because you're a really talented designer. And just share a little bit more, about the style of jewelry that you make and design, because our listeners aren't going to be able to see your jewelry right now. So just describe to them sort of how you got
Yeah,
into it and a little bit more about your style.
of course. What a challenge to put it into words. um, for me, it's all about feeling. I would say I'm first an artist, and metals came into my life as a medium through which I love to express myself. I started with metal work, with sculpture, like large form sculpture, over 10 years ago. But I've always been very inspired by the jewelry of really different cultures throughout the world through that I've seen through my travels. And for example, Native American culture that I was exposed to a lot in my home state of Colorado. So jewelry was just always an art form that spoke to me very deeply, that I feel holds so much richness and history and culture. And that as I feel I love to express myself in many different mediums, it is one medium that can really encapsulate a lot of my expression, but also the expression of the earth. I'm very, very connected to the earth and to nature. So being able to work with metals and gemstones that are actually of the earth is just a huge honor to me and something I don't take lightly. I would describe the aesthetic of my jewelry as, yeah, kind of being inspired by nature as well, pretty organic, and fluid. Everything I create is formed with my hands, with my fingers. I'm like sculpting and carving and really feeling into every design that I create. So it's a very organic process. It's a very intimate and this deep expressive process that I have in my creations.
That's so beautiful. I love the way
Mm.
you describe that, Elise. And for anyone who's listening to this, you definitely want to check out Elise's Instagram and page, because your designs, like even when you just glance at your designs, there's so much depth to your pieces. And just the way you're describing how important it is that you're making them with your hands, you're carving them. There's so much emotion, I feel, that's put into your brand and your pieces, and you can definitely feel that when you're looking at your designs. So I love that so much. So how long have you kind of been like focusing on the jewelry for?
I would say I started really experimenting 4 years ago. 5 years ago is when I reached out to my mentor. John Baker, who's an incredible goldsmith in the US, and had 2 weeks with him one-on-one that really immersed me into the actual jewelry form. And then slowly from there, I was always moving from Mozambique. I was getting my tools in South Africa. Then I moved to Germany and Berlin, and was bringing things back from the States, and now in Portugal. So it's been kind of a journey, slowly weaving it more and more into my life. And now I would say in the past less than a year that I've fully made the full-blown commitment to do this full time. And it's everything I think about, dream about, and yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I love it so much. And, I think it's such a good reminder for some people listening who maybe are where you were a few years ago and they just starting to get dabble in it and they just getting started. Sometimes it can be a journey, and that's perfectly okay. And I think you learned so much along the way. And now you're full-time in the jewelry business. But I know you had more sort of corporate background before, and I'd love for you just to share briefly about that and how you transitioned into such a creative space and sort of the challenges that you faced doing that, because it is a tough transition.
Yes, definitely. So I grew up mostly in the States and with a lot of mentality of, joining the workforce and getting a degree. And I always was an artist from a very young age. That was always something coming through me, but I didn't really have artists around me to model how to really live as an artist. So I did study a few different topics and would often kind of quit my studies to go into the arts. And at one point I thought, okay, what is something that's actually very creative and inspiring to me? And I thought about the brain, actually, and consciousness, human consciousness. This is a subject that comes out in my work as well. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to get a degree in neuroscience. I'm going to study the brain. And this is a super fascinating part of the human experience that to me is very creative and we know so little about. So I was inspired to pursue this, and through my studies became a scientist and did a lot of research, worked in academia, worked in hospitals, and was on a track to become a doctor and really take a full-blown career in this area. But I did realize that the learning process of the brain, the studying, even creating research projects and seeing them through was all very exciting to me. But the day in and day out of being a scientist and being in these industries was not really what I wanted to do forever. And that the artist in me didn't feel like it had enough space. So yeah, I would say ultimately I made a pretty night and day decision. I cold cut, left my job, my life, my country, everything overnight, and kind of went on a journey first to really touch base with myself again. That was back in 2016. And that would have marked the day that I really left that career behind, which it had a lot of comfort and stability in it. So, and I hadn't fully built myself into the artist entrepreneur phase. So I didn't really have something I was jumping into. I was more so just jumping into the abyss, if you will, and knowing I needed some time and space to really feel into what direction I would take next. But the jewelry and the metals already at that time was a deep seed planted in me that I knew that was going to be a big part of my future. So it's pretty cool to think back on that time when I took a big leap of faith, and that I was already then journaling designs, drawing designs, journaling about all the jewelry I was going to make and these collections and the names and where it was going to take me and how I would photograph everything, how it would connect me to the world. And so yeah, I guess I say I didn't know what I would do, but I think I actually had a good idea what I was going to do.
Oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. I just got goosebumps when you were sharing that story. I love hearing stories of people that just like make this decision and make this big change despite not knowing how it's going to turn out. They have this like deep inner trust that I'm on a journey and this is my path and I know things are going to work out for me. And you had to have had that real, like, strong belief that I'm going to be okay and this is my path to make that leap and to just like, I know you were sort of on one level thinking about jewelry, but you didn't have a plan in place. It sounds like, it was just like, you know what, this path that I'm on right now isn't for me. And I just need the headspace. I need the space to be able to actually come up with where I'm wanting to go. And I find that really interesting because what I found in the corporate world was I was in a similar position where I was like, okay, this isn't for me. And I was like, well, I can build my business on the side. And I realized it's very challenging to do that on some jobs because they don't give you the headspace. They just take all of your headspace, all your creative energy. And it's like, you have to be aware of that. And I think for like what you did, for somebody who's a true artist as well and a true creative, you need a lot of headspace and a lot of dead time, if that makes sense, to be able to get clear on where you're wanting to go. So I think it's so beautiful that you did that and you took that journey, you took that space, and then you slowly found yourself on this path to building your jewelry business. So, oh my goodness, there's so much I want to touch on there. But what would you say to somebody who's listening who is in the corporate world? And, we have two different types of jewelry business owners typically. We have people who just want to start their own business, which was more me. Then we have the true artists, which are you, like somebody who's like you, who's like, okay, yeah, you also want your own business, but I feel like you're just a true creative, true artist who was feeling a little stuck and put in a container in that job. So what would you say, what would your advice be to someone who's listening, who is like a true artist, who's feeling stuck and feeling trapped in a job, and they're wanting to do something more creative, they're wanting to potentially start their own jewelry business or whatever, but they don't really know what to do?
Ooh, it's so case by case. I've coached people on this very subject, and it's just so dependent on each individual and their circumstances. But I think one thing that really reigns true, especially like you said, if you're a true this like artist, this true like need and desire to express and to create from nothing. I really would touch back again on this space. I think it's just imperative that somehow you're able to get that space from what you're feeling stuck in and not jumping straight to something else, not having a need to define the next step or the next chapter. And even if it's a holiday, like of course, you can't just like, I wouldn't recommend to everyone to quit their job and run away.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot through the way that I approached things, and I think that can be really risky and destabilizing for a lot of people. But I think finding space to really lean into yourself, feel out what is inspiring you. We're often just given this narrative that we're supposed to like push through life, like, continue on the hamster wheel, like just that's just what life is. But oftentimes when we can take space to listen to ourselves, there will be another path, there will be another way to approach life, even with the obstacles we have. And I would say embrace yourself for not being comfortable as well. I think there's in this path no really like safe or comfortable way to do it. It's most often, I think, to become like to go down the path of the artist in society is it's not really built up for that, right? So it's kind of a risk inherently, and it's going to feel uncomfortable on the nervous system. It's going to feel like shaky. So I think mentally preparing for just the disease that comes with going down your own path and finding peace in that somehow. just even mentally, energetically.
I love that you
Trying
shared
to
that.
imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the nervous system, because this is something most people do not think about till some people even years in their business. And the reality is, like, learning to regulate your nervous system is probably one of the best things you can do as a business owner. It's been one of the best things I've done as a business owner. Like, I've heavily invested in people who help me regulate my nervous system, and tools and practices and all of that, because if you can feel the fear and the discomfort that comes up in your body, which happens when you're doing anything new, especially anything where you're putting your heart and soul out on the line, which you are as a creative business owner, it is so uncomfortable. And a lot of people who haven't like processed what's happening will be like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. It means that I shouldn't be doing this. And that's not the case. It's just, it means that you need to just move through and process that, and learn how to regulate your nervous system so that you can keep moving forward. So I really love that you shared that. And, I'd love to chat a little bit, because obviously you're part of the Jewelry Business Academy. You've only been in for a couple of weeks. We haven't even had our strategy session together yet. But I'm really glad that you've dived in, because we're going to hear where you're at right now and the lessons you've learned so far. And then we're going to bring you back in a couple of months and hear your updates. And it's going to be so much fun to be able to see like the growth and expansion that happens over that period of time. So do you want to just share how you were feeling before you joined the Jewelry Business Academy? What was kind of your aha moment for being like, yeah, you know what? Like, I feel like this is the time to join and get that support.
Yeah, I've taken on freelance work in the sciences on and off over the past few years. So I've been kind of toggling between this and the coaching and the science kind of jobs or work. And I think I was just reaching a point where I got really honest with myself of, why am I keeping this around? Because it feels like the most draining. And anytime I would really focus on my jewelry, I was telling myself like, this should be still, to the side until whatever. I would make up like marks that I could justify doing it full time. But when I really thought about it from an energetic standpoint, and was honest with myself that creating the jewelry, working on my business, that this was what was life-giving and energy-giving to me. This was what, like, I couldn't count the hours of work, because I just enjoy it and love it so much, despite the hardship and the struggles that come up. It was a clear kind of answer for me to also just release the little things that I was holding on to, that even though I enjoy them, wasn't feeling like energy giving. And I was listening a lot to your podcasts at the time. And I am generally a person, I like to feel into things before making, right? I've learned that from the past decision in my life. So I've been listening to your podcast and imagining myself for months as just doing this full time, and just being like really fully dedicating myself to jewelry too, not all art forms that I do, but really being, okay, the jewelry, okay, this is my full-time work. This is my business. It's like a new baby. And listening to your podcast, and I found that I was really implementing a lot of the suggestions that you'd give, and I was inspired to take notes and follow through and check back on with myself, to see how it was feeling and how it was going and any improvements. And yeah, I just naturally saw like a progression in myself and my mentality, and my relationship to my work with the jewelry. So I had kind of kept the Jewelry Business Academy at arm's length for a while, especially in that time. And I think the second time you reached out to me again was when I really felt ready. I was going through another big change in my life. So it was, again, like more of the risk, like a risky time for me to join, but it was really the opportunity for me to say, like, this is my yes or my no. And I want to say yes to what gives me the most life and what gives me back the most and what I feel like I have the most to give, which is, the jewelry. So we had our call, and I think the next day I said yes, and here we are.
Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful. I forgot that you were listening to the podcast for a few months before, and now you're on the podcast. So I think it's actually such a wonderful strategy, to envision yourself doing that, and to do that daily, I guess, when you're listening to the podcast and taking notes, and to like envision this life where you are a full-time jewelry designer and this is happening and it is your full focus. So that's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that, Elise. And, so you're only a couple of weeks in, you're still very new in the program, but I'd love to know, like, what are some of the wins that you've celebrated since joining?
Oh, goodness. Okay. Definitely there have been wins. I have a hard time saying, I think I would love to give you like metrics, but honestly, the biggest wins for me would be more just like energetic and the way I relate to my business and progress I've seen and felt in my business. Like a big one is just, I really feel like it's like, it's happening. It's what I'm doing. It's like, I feel that the world is beginning to understand that more as well, which is so huge and impactful for a business. Like, really, we underestimate how important it is for the world to understand that we are committed. So I think that, like, the commitment from me as well, I have a fear of commitment in my life. And so really committing, it means a lot for me. It takes a lot for me. So I think that commitment aspect from me, I feel like it's really powerful. And I think a lot more inspiration is flowing. I feel like so much more clarity in the systems and like that I'm developing, even though we're just like, we haven't even had our call yet, but it's been brewing in my mind, and that's why I postponed the call as well. So that feels like very fundamental and very valuable. And I think, especially in my custom orders, I've seen a huge shift take place in my energy, what I'm giving and what I'm receiving in return, and creating those barriers. That was a huge place, really draining me in my business for a long time. So having more orders come in, and also having at the terms that are correct for my business. I think that's super huge. So I have other wins. Also the friends I've made here in the academy already, that feels like a huge win, because I was really longing for that connection with other jewelry business owners, to feel more support and give more support. Because we also, I think, undervalue like how valuable it is to give support while you're in the process of building up a business. It helps you realize, like, oh, I'm further along than I have thought. And likewise, like, receiving the support from someone further along, that has been super valuable. So
oh, amazing. I
so
love hearing that. I love hearing that. And yeah, you've really integrated so quickly and so well with the other members in the community. And I just love seeing like how quickly people connect with one another and those friendships starts building. And it is a game changer, definitely, when you're building a business with other people that you trust, that understand the journey that you're on, that are also supportive of you. I just realized we're at time. Do you have time to go a few minutes over?
Yes, I do.
I wasn't watching the time. Oh my goodness. But I love hearing that. And, I know we've talked about custom orders a lot. And this is actually something that I see a lot of new business owners making the mistake of, is like they just dive into custom without having any boundaries, any structures in place. And that's when you start resenting it, and you start like going back and forth and wasting a lot of time, wasting money. And it becomes a bit of a stress. So I'm so glad that, you know, it shifted, and we've only just got started with implementing those boundaries and those structures into that whole process. So I love hearing that. What would you say has been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned since joining the Academy?
Wow. I have to think on that for
I'm giving you the big questions.
a second. I think, yeah, I feel like we talk about this a lot, but for sure, just the like showing up, however that looks, even if it's taking days off and acknowledging it's just like, I just can't right now. I'm to my limit. Tomorrow I'll be back there, you know, I'll be back tomorrow. Really, I think there's so many pieces and layers to look after, and acknowledging that it's like a huge journey to embark on. It's not a small task to any of it, to be a jewelry business owner, to be any business owner, to be an artist, to be a designer, to outsource design, like any of the stories I've heard of the people in the Academy. It's just a huge task for everyone and for all of us. So I think just continuing to show up every single day, acknowledging that it's a lot, and it's going to come together piece by piece. You can't force it or rush it. I think just the really giving like your energy and like your soul to it. You can't always physically be there or mentally be there, but there are ways, I think, to just show up every day. And like you teach a lot, even that looks like resting sometimes. That's also showing up for the business. So that's been a huge lesson for me to have. Yeah, as I'm also balancing many other things in life.
I love that. Yeah, I think we talk about this a lot, that, you know, business building is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And a lot of newer business owners look at it as a sprint, because they're like, I need to hit this milestone within this time frame. And that's when you end up burning out. So yeah, recognizing it's a marathon, recognizing there's up and down days, and showing up anyway, having the right systems in place, having the right support, having the accountability. Like it all impacts your journey, because it is a lot, you know, as a jewelry business owner. When you're getting started in your one-man show, there's literally 21 different job roles, like 21 hats that you're wearing, which is a lot. And so having the right systems, having the right structure, having the right like support and accountability helps make that all so much smoother. But it definitely is a marathon. And I'm glad that you shared, you know, about rest days, because I do talk about this all the time. Rest is productive. And it's like recognizing that and rewiring our brains to think we're not being lazy, we're actually being productive on those days. So I love that. And I'd love to know what your advice would be to somebody who's listening, who is a jewelry designer or is wanting to really go in on that path, and they're feeling inspired by your story. What would your advice be to anyone who's thinking of joining the Academy?
Wow, my advice would be really to think of how it's going to help you show up more for yourself, for your passions, your desires, to kind of let the logistics fade to the background. And yeah, if you're ready, if you feel ready to commit, I think that was the thing for me. It's like hitting that phase of commitment. If you're ready for it, definitely go for it. Robin is amazing and has a lot of, I've never witnessed you like not being able to give advice in the moment that it's being asked. So it's been phenomenal to see what you're able to provide to many of us as well. Yeah, and the structures that's built into the Academy, it's so supportive. The people within it have been super wonderful and supportive as well. So I would say to go for it and trust in yourself that you've got this.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And it's been so much fun having you in the program, even though you were so brand new. But I'm really looking forward to like helping and supporting you on this journey, because it is a journey, it's a marathon, and it's going to be really exciting to bring you back on in about 6 months' time and just hear all the growth, hear all the updates,
Yeah.
and hear all the milestones that you've been hitting and celebrating as well. So is there anything else that you'd like to share? Any like lessons learned, anything that you'd like to share before we end today?
I can't think of anything at the
That's
moment.
okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. I know I'm putting you on the spot. It's funny because some people are like, Robin, send me all the questions before. And I'm like, I don't have the questions. We roll and I like putting people on the spot.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess if there's anything to me, it's just I think it's so important that we, like, each individual person really sees the light of their own story. And I think that's really hard to do these days. And if we're sucked into the social media or friendship circles or whatever it is, it can be really hard to not, or hard to see the beauty in our own unique story. So I think anyone who's listening, if you're joining or if you're going on your own path or however it might pertain to you, I would just remind everyone to look within yourself and this beautiful journey and story you already have up to this point, and reflect on the potency of that.
Wow, that's a powerful, powerful thing to end on. Oh my goodness, Elise. I can see the coachings coming through because you're just a natural, like motivational speaker. And the one thing that you said there that I just love for you to expand on, because I've actually been wanting to do a whole podcast episode on this particular topic, but I'd love for you to expand on friendships, like adult friendships and having those friendship circles, because I find that adult friendships are actually really hard. And especially when you're in a transition phase in life, I find that having a solid friend group is actually a hindrance, potentially for some people who feel like they have to fit in and they ignore their soul's calling for more. Not for everybody, but for some people. Like, what would you say to that?
Well, you're asking, yeah, I have never lived in one place really for more than 2 years at a time. Like, I was always switching schools, moving to different states, different countries. So I learned really young that I wasn't going to have that solid group of friends, and I always missed that. But I think you're right. Now as an adult, I see that that has also been a blessing for me. I hold on to so many people throughout my life, don't get me wrong, but I think, yeah, we are all evolving, right? So I think it's important to consistently reevaluate the roles that friends play in our lives, and the other way around as well, and the value they bring, the value we offer, and to constantly make like an honest assessment of how that's playing out in your life and how that's impacting your dreams and your visions for yourself as well, your ability to show up as the person you desire to be more than anything. Because you're right, sometimes we hold each other back. Sometimes it's time to let go. Sometimes we can rebirth a new friendship with someone. But it's important to not get kind of stuck in the same cycles and the same loops that we might play out in dynamics with certain people. But at the same time, friends are everything to me. So yeah, it's for me a constant process, and I wouldn't be where I am today without my friends. So I would just recommend that also we can sometimes find new people with where we're at who are really influential in our journey. So I don't place value on my friendships based on necessarily the time we've known each other or these kind of metrics. It's more about the
The depth.
consistency than the depth that's there. Yeah.
Mm, that's so beautiful. I love the way that you frame that, Elise. And I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people because I do find that, you know, obviously there's so much value in friendships, and I have friendships from like many, many years. But because I've had the same situation, I've moved a lot, you know, those friendships are sometimes at a bit of a distance. And you sometimes find yourself being like, wow, I wish I had that solid group of friends all here. But sometimes it's been beneficial to be forced to have the space to find your own path. Like sometimes there's so much benefits in that. And it's not saying that those friendships aren't valuable. It's saying like it gives you the headspace and the space to really forge your own path and not just do kind of keep the status quo, if that makes sense. But I agree, like friendships are so valuable, especially when you're able to make friendships with people on a similar path to you who really understand the journey you're on and are able to uplift you and support you and motivate you, and you can do the same to them. Like I find that's a really beautiful place to be. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And this has been so much fun.
Absolutely.
I can't wait for our chat in a few months' time. And, you know, I know a lot of our listeners are going to be feeling really inspired and motivated and uplifted by your story today. So where can our listeners find you and how can they support you?
Oh, thank you for asking that. I am building my website.
We're just getting
Again,
started.
for the 10th time. So that's not really up and ready yet, but my Instagram page is where I'm handling everything at the moment. Yeah, it's Elise Estelle, and always available by DMs and by email. So that's probably the best way at the moment.
Perfect. And we'll link that in the show notes. So you guys definitely want to go check out Elise's page and check out her jewelry and connect with her over there. But this has been so much fun, Elise. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thanks for pushing me out of my comfort zone. I'm super glad we did this.
I'm so glad as well. You're a natural. You're a natural. Like, yeah, I'm gonna chat. I have an idea for you. We'll chat about it straight after this.
Okay. Looking forward.
Okay. Let me end the live. And all I'm just gonna do is share this because it disappears. But that was super fun. How do you feel now?
It was so fun. I'm shocked, kind of.
Yeah,
I just enjoyed talking with you a lot, and yeah, it felt uplifting. Thank you.
it's super uplifting. It's super fun. I'm just tagging you on this before it deletes itself. But I'm so glad that you are feeling good. I think it's also always interesting, like thinking back on your story and like your journey and but yeah, this was super fun.